everyone. Welcome to Ascension 5D Chats. I'm here today with Claudia, the Death Fairy. We are talking about different types of entities and attachments and our fairies, demons. Welcome to Ascension and 5D Chat, where we discuss what is happening with our planet's ascension journey. I am Rachel Chamness. I help lightworkers connect to their spiritual helpers and light path.
Hi.
So, hi, Claudia. Thanks for coming. I just want to tell everybody that I found Claudia on Instagram because I just love your reels. I just love to watch them. They're so good. And it's not often that I see someone talking about all the things that I love to talk about too, like death and not be afraid of it, and different kinds of beings and mediumship, trance mediumship, and that I agree with almost everything you say, or probably everything you say. I haven't seen anything I don't agree with. So I just really wanted to chat and I thought it'd be fun. So thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. That was such a beautiful introduction. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm very honored and grateful to be here and a big fan. And I am so excited to talk about entities because I talk about entities all the time. I'm a born medium. I didn't know it, but as a kid, I always talked to ghosts. Always, never scared, invited them in. Spirits, ghosts, all of them. I just felt so comfortable. That girl in Beetlejuice, that was me. I was Lydia Dietz. And I know, right? Weren't we all?
No, that was not my experience at all.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, I was always very comfortable. The weird person, right? And I started channeling first. So you being a trance medium, I can really resonate with that because from channeling, I went into trance mediumship because it was so easy and fluid. And I just love being in the zone, you know, being able to just let spirit speak and not have to worry. But now I've transitioned into evidential mediumship, which is more like bringing through the evidence, getting some your grandma gave you a necklace when you were 3, right? kind of stuff. And fairies are really important. I am such an earth being, so fairies are such an important part of my energy. They're always around me, and I'm so grateful for them.
I saw one earlier. Yes. Well, see, we have so much in common, except for when I was a kid and I saw and talked to ghosts, then I was scared. So I talked to them, and then I got scared about it, and then I kind of turned it off, and then it was some time before I turned it on. But when I started being a trance medium, when I began being a medium on purpose, I should say, I realized that I had been doing it a long time without realizing it. I just thought I was a little ditzy or that I would just kind of space out, but really I was trancing or channeling all the time and I didn't know it.
Girl, I'm with you. Because like it's funny because you're taking the classes and you're like, this is so easy. And you don't realize like it's not easy, but you've just been doing it naturally for so long. So I agree with that.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, you know, this is a really interesting subject, and you know, we both love the Fae. Are fairies and Fae demons? So
yeah, that's a great topic. And one where people from different parts of the world would say different opinions on this, right?
Definitely.
I'm American.
There's definitely like a whole Christian or religious viewpoint that, of course, everything is a demon. Everything's a demon pretending to be something else.
Those ghost shows don't help. Those ghost shows always have a demon. Every time they go into a house, it's a demon.
Right.
They're part of the problem.
That's true. That's true. But as far as I see Fae, they are all, that I see, they're all good. And they tell me that the unseelie don't really exist anymore, at least not in this plane. That's what they told me. But I don't know what kind of things you've come across.
Yeah, well, to define like what I see fairies are the spirits of nature. So you can have like literally a fairy of flowers. You sense them too. When you go out in nature, you sense the fairies all the time. You have this admiration, like, oh, what a beautiful flower, because you're connecting with that energy, with that fairy. So the same as when we like go out and feel the wind on our face, that carries that fairy of that element. And going into fairies like in mythology, they don't all look like pixies. That's a fairy. That's a form of one kind of fairy.
Right.
You know, cute little pixies. Fairies are so random. They can be anything gnome-like, troll-like, human-like, non-human-like, lights, air, all sorts.
So I see them like that too, but I give them all the names for that. So we're seeing the same thing and we think of it a little bit different. So I kind of think of them as like fae or elementals and like all different kinds of fairies. And like what you're talking about, I would call we call them nature spirits, but they are fae, they're fairy, like the mushroom fairy, the rock fairy. And then I have so many names for all sorts of elemental beings, but that is really cool. I like the way that you think of it. And yes, that the wind has a spirit and the water has a spirit of its own and the fire. I love that.
Yeah. I also see, I want to say something like dragon spirits, although they're not fairies, are like that primordial energy of earth. And the fairies are like the keepers of the earth, if that makes sense, or like the ones who facilitate everything energy that just a bit slightly above physical, energy.
That's how I see it too. They tell me that they, they're part of earth. It's really like their earth, not our earth. And I see dragons a little bit differently. They're like elemental. They say we're not really Fae. So they tell me like there's Fae and there's elemental and they're a little bit different. I mean, that's just what I get. I'm sure everybody gets different stuff, but it seems in line with what you're saying too.
Yeah, and that's also the beauty of, everyone's going to see and feel different things. And we can both be looking at the same fairy and see completely different things depending on how our system works, which is really fascinating.
Right. That's so cool.
I know. I also see like energy as like that unique way of translating. Well, okay, we translate energy uniquely is what I want to say.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of being our own person.
When you trance, do you ever have this sensation of the being kind of hunting around for a word that you have that they can use?
Oh yeah. Oh totally. Oh my gosh, it's so frustrating because I stutter. I stutter trying to get the right word, and then I can hear them say like, not that word, not that word, another word.
So I can feel it. It's like they're like hunting, like, where's that word? And I'm like, is it this word? I mean, in my head, I'm like, is it this word? Is it that word? Is it that word? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
And so, of course, what you're saying, it's like they're using your system or your information or how you classify it. I've tranced beings who were like, well, you could say we're 12th dimension since humans like to use the word dimensions and we'll go by your system, but it's not really like that.
They do go by our system when they're trying to communicate with us. And for getting into the demon part, how would you define a demon? Just curious.
So I see all different, we're going to talk about this too, all different kinds of entities. And, I do come from a Christian background. I was raised Catholic, but very loosely. So I don't know if it's just that imprint, but if I see a really powerful kind of entity, especially one that's taking someone over, a deep attachment, then I usually call it a demon. I'm not sure it's exactly a demon, but that just seems like the best word for what it is. So that's when I would use it.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I was raised Catholic too. So then with the Catholic upbringing, there's heaven, purgatory, hell, which in my right now, how I use like the energies, I don't even believe in that system anymore. Right. But so like I associate a demon would be somewhere from hell. But then if there's no hell, where would this entity come from? So I would think of like the lower astral, because we have like physical, etheric, astral in my terminology, right? So a little under that astral would be that lower astral where they're just kind of stuck. And maybe I can see some sort of like monster or I don't know, a creature, a mean creature. I see entities as like just mean people, not demons.
That's really cool. I like the way that we both see such similar things, but we see them a little bit differently and we call them different things too. Like for me, I would say that these beings exist sort of in a lower dimension, nice. Not quite like if fairies and fae are 5th dimensional, and then we have above that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Angels are around 12, 13. And then we have these kind of, evil or negative beings, then that would be more like 4th dimension or 3rd dimension. Yeah. So I would kind of feel like that's how I would categorize it, but it's really the same thing. Right. And sort of, I feel like it does lead somewhat into the astral. I had a teacher who told me a long time ago that the astral plane is a place where, everything we've ever come up with, it exists because we came up with it. And it could be good or it could be bad, it's just sort of where everything is. And that's kind of just how I sometimes think of it. But, not really sure exactly that I would categorize it like that now, but I can see kind of what she's saying.
it's a terminology, and it's just whatever you're more used to saying, only because I just learned and started using astral as a base. So for me, the spirit world is the astral world, and so that I just kind of use that as my like guide. Then it goes higher or lower depending on where we are, and we're physical. So I also categorize it with like physical is like physical you can touch,
Right.
and then astral would be emotional, and then above astral would be the mental, the causal, like
Right.
all the information. So it's the same thing. I just don't put numbers with it.
That's cool. I see it in the same way you're seeing it. I'm just putting
Yeah.
different words. So just real quick, back to fairies and demons. I mean, I would say no. Do you have any?
No, I don't think they're demons at all, because they're just energies. Just like we're just energies. We're energies in a physical body. They're energies in a higher vibrational body, right? And they're just doing their own thing, just like we're doing our own thing. And if we butt heads, we butt heads, but they're not evil.
Right.
Just like a human. If you can meet good humans and bad humans.
That's right. And then of course, even the word evil is subjective, of course. You know, just two sides of opinion.
I always see evil as an act, right? An act of evil, like a purposely maliciously done thing would be evil. But people are not evil.
Well, I don't believe that people are evil. I think that they may be here on this earth and their soul path or their purpose is to be the opposition and to do a lot of evil things and stir it up and bring us to somewhere we're supposed to go as a planet or for certain people. But that their spirit or their soul is not evil, of course.
Yeah. That's why when we talk about demons, I'm like, well, these are definitely man-made entities here we're talking about to stir up fear, right? I would call it more of an egregore. So someone in power said, don't do that, or the demons will get you. I mean, parents do it all the time. Don't do that, or the monster's going to get you. I grew up with a Mexican household, and we had kind of like a boogeyman that, you know, parents would often say, if you do that, you know, the kukui, the boogeyman's going to get you.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah. Yes. So, you know, we didn't want to get eaten. So we behaved very quickly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's like anti-Santa.
There's a, what's it called? What is he called again? The little demon guy that gets children and eats them.
Oh, I don't know.
His name is slipping my mind right now, but it'll come back to me. Okay. And yeah, there's that story. It's the same thing. It's in Grimm's fairy tales. Behave or you will get eaten, child. Either a witch is going to eat you, your own parents going to eat you, something's going to happen.
Well, let's talk about all the different kinds of entities. So what we're talking about here is beings of spirit that we may see as mediums. So there's vampiric.
Yes, vampiric. So I see people who die and do not cross over. They want to stay here and be human. I see those entities as vampiric in the afterlife, right? And like as a dead person, because that's
so interesting. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Okay. So if I can give a scenario, so and so doesn't die because they're scared to go to hell. They're scared of the other side. Okay. So they stay here. So instead of like crossing over, they're like, oh, but I miss drinking alcohol. So they're going to hang out at the bar. They're going to latch off of somebody who's having a really good time and just feel human again, right? Just for that one moment, they get that high by like sucking their alcoholic energy or whatever you want to call it. And it's going to be addicting. Then they're going to want to do it again and again and again. And the more energy they can take, the more physical they can feel. That's how I see
really
it.
Cool. I have not seen it that way. You know, most of the time when I deal with entities and beings, it's from a more healing aspect. So I'm sort of taking them off people and transmuting them. I do see sometimes passed over people. I see people who aren't passed over as well. And I've had to tell people that they're dead. You know, many times you have to tell them, hey, guess what? You're dead. You should really cross over.
Yeah.
Let me help you. But I like that. I've heard that before. And that's really interesting. I have not witnessed that. These earthbound spirits and addiction. What I've seen is sometimes I see these people who are not crossed over, these earthbound spirits, and they say things like they don't want to leave the home because they lost a child in that home or they had a child in that home, or they don't want to leave because they're sometimes just I don't know, sometimes they're mischievous. Like they're flicking lights and they're doing these things. They think it's funny,
Yeah.
you know, trying to scare people or just seeing what would happen, just hanging out, watching. And sometimes you have to convince them, like, hey, you could have so much more than this. You just crossed.
Yes, that's true. And then there comes that argument with like, well, how come they're not crossing over? Don't they have guides? They do have guides. They're just ignoring their guides.
Yeah, I
They're like,
see.
no.
Right. Or sometimes it can be a shock and they don't know.
Yes, they're kind of in denial the whole time. Even if they see like a guide, that probably freaks them out because they still think they're alive.
A lot of times they think they're alive.
It's like Sixth Sense.
Or they're just trying to figure out what's happening. I've seen people who have crossed over from a heart attack, something that happened really quickly and, you know, they didn't expect because they were young. And they're just like, what's happening? And like, you can see me, what's happening? You know, and I'd have to explain to them, oh, well, you had a heart attack, you know? So, but usually in that case, where it's just happened, they'll cross over after their funeral themselves.
There's also the children too. And those are the ones I feel really bad for when they want to stay with their parents, even though their parents are like long gone by now. But they don't know that. They don't realize that. The house is familiar to them. That, you know, stuffed animal or whatever is familiar to them. So they cling on to that. That's like an innocent ghost. And I feel like those are the ones that are more poltergeistish. They like to play with things or they like to get people's attention because they're still children in their energy field. They're still very much young and innocent. So
we used to have one, and my son's name is Robbie, and he would call the ghost the other Robbie.
Oh, wow.
But I really couldn't see this ghost, or this spirit. And Robbie would tell me when he was really little, like 3 or 4, he'd say, oh, he lives in the wall. And then I tried to cross him over, but I just couldn't get him. He's like staying away from me. And then when Robbie was older, he told me that, oh, the other Robbie just likes kind of being here because it reminds him of his home. Yeah. I was like, oh, but he should go.
Yes. But yeah, you're still a vampire. You got to get out of here, little boy.
I don't think he's around anymore. I think we finally cleared him, but it always was so sad.
Yeah, I definitely can resonate with, like, you know, we think they're cute and sweet or fun or like something exciting to have. And yeah, they are, but they're also taking your energy, whether you trust them or not. They need to take energy in order to physically manifest things or to physically move things. So if more stuff is happening in your house, that means they're full of a lot of energy.
Well, that makes sense. So they take energy to that, and that's how they can move things.
Yeah.
So that makes sense for a lot of things I've seen. That's really interesting.
It's like their power-ups. We're their food.
No thanks. Okay, well, let's talk about parasitic entities. What kind of parasitic entities do you see?
These are the ones that actually attach onto you and literally feed off of you. And
these are like the octopus. I see the octopus or squid ones too.
They could look like that. When I see them, I see the Japanese ghosts. I lived in Japan for 10 years. And you know how they have horror movies with like the girl looking like, and she's coming out of the TV. Those would be like parasitic entities to where they know that they're not being nice. They know that they're like totally torturing us. And they don't care. They're like, I'm dead. I want you to die. Join me.
Join me in my misery. Yeah.
Yes. That's a kind of parasitic entity.
That makes sense because they were probably like that in life too.
They could have been, yeah, scorned by love or by just, there's so many reasons. They hate humans. They hate humanity. Probably, you know, willingly died, and now they want to make your life as miserable as theirs was.
Now, in healing, I see parasitic entities that look like huge worms.
That's kind of cool.
They are really gross. They have eggs. They do all kinds of disgusting things. And yeah, I just clear that as fast as possible if I see that.
There's a really beautiful analogy of that, or like a way to portray that. And I don't know if you've ever seen Princess Mononoke. It's a cartoon, a Japanese cartoon, in that one of the animals has like a parasitic entity attached to it. And you see all these worms coming out, and it looks really creepy and gross. And the way you described it makes me think of that.
I guess we should take a minute here to talk about why we shouldn't be scared of all this stuff.
Yes.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared. I feel like we always have our guides and angels and ancestors with us 24/7. And so they're just always around, but we don't focus on them. We don't try to feel them or sense them or see them. So we feel very alone, and that in itself can feel very scary when you see an entity like this, or being told that, like, you know, as Catholics, demons are evil and they want to take your soul. Like, you're constantly told that. Whatever you do, if you do something bad, you're going to go to hell. It's like you're screwed no matter what you do.
Right.
You have this like fear already built in. So that's just a person telling a person to control a person. You know, like these are all control tactics. I really feel like when you realize that you have that divine power already within you, and you are a part of your guides as much as they're a part of you, you guys both have that godlike, the source power.
Yeah.
You can really feel a lot stronger in your energy.
You're speaking my language. That's right. Yeah, we're just part of the divine. We're an expression of the divine's energy, and we are more powerful than we think, and our guides are always there. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that we learn as humans, that we're not alone. We think we're alone, but we're not. And it's not creepy that we're not alone. It's comforting. We have all these beings, these incredible spirit guides who want to help us and help us just have a beautiful, joyful life and help us and protect us in so many ways that we don't see.
Definitely. Just one more thing I wanted to add back to the vampires. So the lore of vampires needing permission to come in is very true. It's very true in all spiritual teachings. They need permission to get into your system. We give it to them with depression, with alcohol, drugs, not giving, you know, not caring anymore about what our body is doing. That's how we give permission. So remembering that they can't mess with you unless you say it's okay, that kind of boosts up your confidence. Okay, it's like, no, they can't mess with me. They got to leave. They got to get out of my house. They got to get out of my energy space.
You can make all kinds of beings leave like that.
Yeah.
Even interfering alien beings, you can be like, hey, get out. I see you. Get out. And they'll be like, oh.
Oh, yeah. I always tell them out when I see them. I'm like, I see you. And they're like, bye.
Yes, especially. I know they don't want to get too close to me because I'll just be like, time for you to go. Transition portal.
Nice. So you actually, you make a white light portal for them to go through?
I make a portal for them to go through. Yeah, I do a whole thing. But I also ask them why they're here.
Okay.
Especially if they're in someone. If I'm taking them, that's usually when I'm crossing them. Take them out and say, why are you here? Because sometimes they are entities made of strong emotions. Sometimes they're not really like some sort of demon or earthbound spirit or anything. Sometimes they're just you know, the person with so much emotion created. And so a lot of times they say to me, mother energy. Like if there's a problem with mother, with a mother, it could be that happens a lot actually, or it could be something else. You know, she needs to learn to control her boundaries, or they say things like that to me. Well, because they're caught, so they're going. They might as well cooperate because you get one last thing to say.
Got it.
And I learned that you need to cross any kind of entity over, or however you're getting rid of them. I teach this in my psychic healing Reiki master teacher course, but you have to do it with love. It's, you know, I used to do it like, fuck you, get out of here, how dare you, piece of shit. And then in one of my classes, actually, my student brought forth this gorgeous channel about how we need to do everything with love. Then it really woke me up on that. And now I do it with love. And wow, it's so easy. When you do it with love, they're like, okay, they'll tell you anything. They're like, bye. Before it was like, you know, you had to wrestle them.
Yeah, I love that. Do it with love. Definitely makes a lot of sense. And then I would see these like strong emotion entities as like an egregore or something made off of beliefs on beliefs, and it takes on a mind of its own.
Right. Or
which
stories.
I can see demons being that. Like demons are definitely like an egregore. We create a devil and then we give them all these stories and background and everything until it actually manifests into something and it takes on a life of its own.
I really like how you put that. I'm sure that's true because I see things like that. Yeah.
That's what master occultists do, right? Like Aleister Crowley, or even we'll say Hitler, you know, created this egregore of Nazis and like his whole like plan, and people believed it. It's so bizarre. It's like I still can't get it, but you know that just takes on a mind of its own and becomes a horrible demon, essentially.
Yeah.
I think non-vampiric would be like am I dead? Who am I? What's happening? These kinds of like confused and more innocent ghosts that are still staying to, I don't know, watch a movie, ride a roller coaster, these kinds of things, like holding on to life because they missed a few things.
That's interesting. Yes. I see, I live in Tennessee, and I often see these old miners just walking through. I see them sometimes walking around, and they're just lost.
Yeah, I would see those like lost ghosts or lost earthbound spirits as just like non-vampiric. They're just doing their own thing, like almost like what do they call them? Yeah, there's a name for these kind of entities, and I can't think of the name at the moment, but they just kind of do what they used to do when they were alive on loop.
You have no concept of time. It's like, I meet ghosts, spirits, earthbound spirits that are like, it's like they're here, and then they come back like 10 years later, and it's only been like a second, and they really don't even realize what's happening at all.
Yeah, because the spirit world, I think there's not a lot of concept of time over there either. It's very cyclical and happening simultaneously.
Right. Well, let's talk about ancestors. So let's talk about crossed over beings who might come and talk to us.
I love ancestors. That's the best one. That's like grandma, grandpa who crossed over and are watching over you, because they are watching over you. And they can be like great grandma who's like, oh, I never met you, but I really love you and I've been watching you grow up. Those kinds of ancestors are around us all the time.
That's what's really fun about being a medium. So many people are so afraid to do that part, to bring in past beings, which, for some people, they just do sort of spirit guide meeting, which is what I did for a long time. I didn't want to talk to dead people. I just thought that would be really scary. I didn't realize that with spiritual boundaries, it's not really a problem. It's not what I thought, and it's so fulfilling to tell people, your dad says, blah, 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 like he's okay. And he's watching over you. He's proud of you. Sorry about whatever, or, it brings people so much peace.
It does. And just being able to connect, and almost like their energy does come through. Like we're kind of like a vessel. And so you can really feel them, even if it's like on Zoom or on, I don't know, not in person. You can still feel their presence when they're here. Yeah. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's just a beautiful feeling to know that they're still here, just in a different form.
Well, the first time I did this for someone, I was really just not sure I could do it. She really needed to talk to her mom about something, and she had just passed. And so I told her, well, I'll see if she'll come. Send me her picture. So I still use pictures. I like it. It just makes me sure that I'm bringing the right person through. It's probably just for my own ego, but it helps me. So I saw the picture, and I was like, hey, Betty, could you come through? And she was like, I'm here and I'll be there. And I was like, okay, all right, well, go away, come back later. And it worked. And then, so for a long time, I used to have people send me the picture and the name, and I would ask before, hey, would you come? But now it seems pretty easy. I guess I got used to it.
Yeah, I think that's when I started using evidential mediumship. That really helped to make sure it was an ancestor and not a guide, because sometimes it can be a little ambiguous who's coming through. Sometimes guides look a lot like humans. And and sometimes our ancestors, when they pass, their energy can be very high. If they're already like past a lot of BS, their energy can vibrate just as high as like a spirit guide. So it can be a little tricky to get, but that's where I feel evidential mediumship helped a lot, where I can be like, did he wear his pants like this and wear a hat like that? And, like describe him. Then when the sitter is hearing this, he's like, yes, that's him. It gives confidence. Like that's grandpa.
So for a definition of evidential mediumship, you would say to give evidence that you're really talking to the being.
Yes, try to get as much evidence in the beginning, and then the proper way of doing it is like, does it make sense that your grandpa, and then describe things like what they looked like, what they did, maybe how they passed, a memory that they're showing the sitter and them. It's so many ways to get evidence.
Yeah.
And it's tricky.
Stuff like that to me. Like sometimes they'll give me a feeling, like I'll feel like making me calm.
Oh, always, yes.
Just something like that, or sometimes I smell like a pipe, or for me, the way that I see, it's not always so clear. It's more, I have more of like, I see an outline, or I might get a flash, but not so much like a movie or anything like that. It's more about the clairs coming together for me. So they can be a little bit different in the way they give me some information. I kind of feel like by the end of the reading or the information, there's been some sort of evidence brought through or something that makes sense. But that's really cool that you can see so well that you can get all that right in the beginning.
Well, I think it's also how we work. Like some mediums are just really clairvoyant. Like my clairvoyance is really high, and so I have to work harder on clairsentience or something like that. So I get the picture, and then I bring it into my clairsentience, and then I try to feel how it feels and get more information that way. So it's like charades. It's definitely like charades. You're trying to describe it, and like
you got to take all those little pieces and put it together till it
yes.
starts making something. And it's cool because for me, once I start talking, that's where it all comes from. Sometimes that's why I think I've always been a trance medium, because it's just coming out of me, and there's no thought before it, and I'm just saying all this stuff, and if I'm quiet, then it's less of a stream of information.
Yeah, that's like a channeling session, like what I would think channeling is. That's why when I think of trance mediumship, it's like I'm channeling the dead person or the guide, but usually like, yeah, it's just they talk and they do all these things, but it's harder for me to say how they look like or what they're wearing and stuff. It's just them talking basically the whole time.
Okay, so you really trance them. You let the...
Yeah, it's like I describe it as a possession, but I give them permission.
Right, it's different. And yeah. you know that they are crossed over, so you know it's safe.
Yeah, so I usually don't use trance mediumship unless I want to really get the message across. So it'll start with evidential, and then I'll go into trance, and then they'll give their message, and then I'll come out. If I'm doing a channeling session, I just, from the beginning, I'm like, all right, you're going to be in charge because I can't control this anymore. So just ask them a lot of questions, and gets, the better the question, the better the answer. So the sitter's interviewing them.
I usually just straight channel people who are crossed over.
That's
but
cool.
Sometimes it still feels like I'm speaking and without thought. And that could actually be my joy guide, my spirit guide, forming the words. But I do trance all kinds of other beings. But with people, I'm a little, I don't know.
Yeah, same.
But it's very cool. Oh, I love to hear how you do that. That's so neat. This has been so interesting.
I think another term that's maybe not as scary is blending with the energy. Mm-hmm. Like blending so that it doesn't sound like they're totally taking over your body. You're just kind of
that's what people are scared of always. They think they're going to be possessed as a trance medium. And there's so much more that goes into it. Like Claudia and I are not just randomly doing things. We know what we're doing. We have protection. We work with the realms all the time, and we know what we're doing. And so it's a little bit different than just like surrendering your body to unknown beings.
Yeah. And it's a crude way of thinking it, but just like you have to protect before you have sex, it's the same thing. You just cover it up. No spirit babies. Protect yourself.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much protection that goes in there. And for every layer of mediumship that I teach, there's always more protection. Now at this level, this is what you need. And it's not a scary thing. It's just, it puts you at ease to know that you're so well protected.
Definitely.
Helps.
Yeah. You can just tap into the protective energy by grounding. That's going to help a lot.
Grounding is everything for a medium.
Yeah, just ground into it, clear yourself, ask your guides to come in, and then that's how I work. I ground, clear, ask my guides to come in, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that's what I do too. I make a spirit circle, spirit sphere, and then I call in all my guides and helpers, and then I go for it. And the more you do it, the faster you can do it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now I'm like 1 minute. Let's go.
Well, thank you for coming. This was so fun. It was really interesting talking to you. You're welcome. Thank you. Why don't you tell everybody about contacting you and following you?
Yes, I'm the Death Fairy, and I am very active on Instagram. So if you have Instagram, please check me out. If not, let me know so I can get more incentive to go on TikTok, which I really don't want to do.
Same.
But if it works, I can do it too. Also, email me if you have any questions. I'm very happy to help you connect to the other side.
Yay. Well, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
So for anyone, if you have any questions for us, put them in the comments. And thank you so much for watching.
Thank you. Bye.